this webinar is part of a series of webinars for people who are blind or low vision, deafblind, and blind with other disabilities. The purpose of the webinar is to provide you with tools and resources which you can use to take charge of your career exploration and your career development. Each month, we focus on different topics, such as tools to write a resume, the role of assistive technology in the job search process, interviewing, our topic for today, networking, and self-employment. So look for future announcements and please do join us. So to get us started, I invite our speakers to take a few minutes and introduce themselves. So maybe Amy, and then Sarah, and then Mel. So Amy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Kale, and I am the Vice President of Employee and Community Services working here at the Lighthouse for the Blind with Cheryl. I guess that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. What about you, Sarah?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Sarah Freeman Smith, and I am an African American female with a lot of seasoned years under my belt. But primarily, I have a strong, extensive background in human resources recruiting. I've held recruiting leadership roles for some Fortune 500 companies, and now I'm self-employed, and I am in Houston, steamy, Texas.
Thanks, Sarah. Mel?
Hey everyone, my name is Melanie Sonoe, and while Sarah is in steamy Texas, I am on the surface of the sun in Phoenix. I am currently a process engineer at Wells Fargo, but a lot of my career over the last 20 years has been anything customer experience related, from customer service all the way to executive relations. And then I even, with my bachelor's degree, was the editor of a newspaper in West Virginia. So anything talking to the public and making things better is my goal in life.
Lovely. So I'm so excited that you're all here. So again, thank you for joining us. Today we want to celebrate a little bit because this is our 1 year anniversary. And so we're going to do that. And then we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about interviewing because super important. So I'm going to invite Amy to take a few minutes to talk to us about the Lighthouse and sort of ideas around the career webinar. I want to say that Amy is my supervisor, and that during one of our one-on-one meetings, she said something. I think she said something like, "What do you think about doing some career webinars for people in the community?" And that's how we got started. So, Amy?
Yep. Yeah. So here we are 1 year later. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will talk a little bit about the Lighthouse and more broadly about what we do. The Lighthouse for the Blind is a private, not-for-profit social enterprise providing employment, support, and training opportunities for people who are blind, deafblind, and blind with other disabilities. We've provided employment and support to people who are blind in our community since 1918. So we've been around a few of those seasoned years too. Our mission is to empower people who are blind, deafblind, and blind with other disabilities through sustainable employment and transformative services for independence and career advancement. Our philosophy maintains that each employee should be provided with whatever supports are necessary for their success in the workplace. Some of those supports might be things like orientation and mobility instruction, and as a great example, access to this career development program and these webinars so that employees and others can work on skills related to job search and upward mobility. Right now, the Lighthouse employs around 440 individuals, more than half of whom are blind. We have access at the Lighthouse to a wide range of career opportunities and training programs, allowing employees to create products and provide services of outstanding quality for our customers. We have 3 manufacturing facilities where employees make aerospace parts, office products like wallboards and others. And we also have contracts with the government, some military contracts to make things like canteens or hydration units for in military speak, for the government and many others. Our manufacturing facilities are located in Seattle, Spokane, and Summerville, South Carolina. We also have 15 base supply centers along the West Coast, and those offer shopping to military personnel and federal employees. And those are locations that where the military personnel can walk into the store and select needed supplies and have them delivered on base or in the office that same day. We also operate contract management support services, 2 of those in San Diego and 1 in Huntsville, Alabama, and 1 in West Virginia. West Virginia one is our newest one, I believe. CMS services help mitigate the critical government shortage of contract specialists by focusing on providing post-contract administration support services that are not, they're not inherently government functions. What they do is they wrap up the contracts, make sure that everyone has gotten what they expected and that everything has been delivered and billed appropriately. So been pretty successful with that. And then of course, we have our career development program, which we are fortunate to have Cheryl managing. And that has been in place for 3 years, or going on 3 years, for our employees internally at the Lighthouse. And in that time, many of our employees have received one-to-one career coaching, working with Cheryl, working on things like identifying skills and strengths, developing resumes, working on LinkedIn profiles, developing an elevator speech, and many, many other topics like this topic today. With the addition of the career-focused webinars and our 1-year anniversary of offering those, which is very exciting, we are able to reach a broader audience of people who are interested in learning more about some of those same skills and topics. And like I said, we are very excited to work with the broader community of individuals who are blind, and we hope that you find these webinars helpful. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially on our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, thank you, Amy. So yeah, let's celebrate a little bit. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Woo.
So we want to give away, we've got 2 copies of the audiobook by Sarah, one of our speakers. We're so excited. It's called Turning Stones into Gems, an inspirational self-development system. Sarah, do you want to say something about the book?
Yeah, just briefly, it's essentially about learning how to find direction in your life and career. And I use myself as an example, starting out in a little bit of clueless, but ultimately homed in on what I feel is my calling and my purpose. So it just talks about really kind of finding your way in a foggy kind of jungle these days. Sometimes you may be in a job that you feel like you're underemployed, or you just can't get employed, or you want to make a total career change and how to reinvent oneself. So kind of starting from an inside outside process. So that's essentially, and it's some tools that you can use in the book, as well as some reference materials to help you kind of figure that out. And even if you want to have some one-on-one coaching, then I'm available as well. So that's what the book is about.
Awesome. Thank you. And then the other thing we're going to give away is 2 1-hour career coaching sessions. Feels weird to say this, but with me.
Nope, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Fantastic. It's very valuable.
Um,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do like one book and one career session at the beginning, and then we'll do one book and one career session at the end.
Oh,
So
cool.
I thought, Amy, you're good at numbers, so so I think. What do you think? Like, is it 1 to 30 or 1 to 20 makes more sense? Like, choose a number. I was thinking you could choose a number, and then we invite people to like raise your hand, or if you'd like to just type your number in, and we're going to choose the people who either guess the number Amy's thinking of, or they come up, or they're the closest to it. So what do we think? 1 to 20?
Sure.
Yeah.
That covers everybody that's on the call?
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay,
Think so.
yeah. And I figure, hey, pick a number and stick it in her brain. You know, she knows. We can't pry it out of her brain.
Yeah. So, all right. So, if you'd like to guess, and the first two people who are closest or get Amy's number, one person will get the book, and then one person will get our session, career coaching with me, and you just randomly we're gonna assign it. So, I don't know. Elena, anybody raise their hand or put any numbers in the chat?
No hands raised, but we have Nikki with 7.
Okay.
Brenda guessed 15. Hillary H guessed 7. And Hunter guessed 15.
Oh no.
Hilarious.
Wow.
Right. Amy, which one's closest to your
Do you want me to say my number, or do you want me to say who?
we trust you to, yeah, I mean, if you wanna, yeah, sure.
Okay, I chose 14.
Oh, so I think our 15 people win,
The
right?
two
All
15ers.
right, so
Yeah.
that's Brenda and Hunter.
All right, so Brenda and Hunter, I'll reach out to you, and we'll figure out how to get you your
Congrats. Yeah,
prizes.
cool.
Congratulations. Yay. All right. So thank you. Thank you. That was fun. And then we're going to end our day sort of doing that again. Um, so Amy, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to say you're certainly welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
I would actually love to. So
All right.
I'll be quiet, but I am really interested in the topic.
All right. Well, thank you for, yeah, hanging out with us then. So this time we thought, instead of lecturing to you about interviewing, we would do something a little different. So we are going to do mock interviews. And then we're going to do one example of an in-person interview, and then another example of a virtual interview. And we're going to stop and talk about like what went well, what didn't go well, and then we'll open it up to questions. So if you remember in our description of the session, we talked about the arc of interviewing, meaning that it's not just the interview at the time, that there's the actual interview and the post. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So I think, Sarah, you agreed to do the mock in-person interview, right? And Mel, you're going to do the virtual.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And so, Sarah, I'm going to ask you to start maybe talking a little bit about what are some of the things somebody needs to think about if you've been invited in for an in-person interview.
Okay, great. First of all, I should have stated in my introduction, I am legally blind. I'd probably say at this phase of with my condition, I probably have lost about 90 to 95% of my sight. So I can only see some forms and shapes, no colors and things of that nature. And I do have to travel with a cane. I do not have a guide dog. Might need one, but at this point, I'm just operating with a cane. So absolutely need a lot of, guidance if I'm going somewhere new in traveling. So that being said, when I started my career, I was fully sighted. And then later in the last 15 years is when my sight loss occurred. So I've had it from both sides of the coin, knowing what to do, both, fully sighted, but obviously not only interviewing with some sight loss, but also being on the other side, being interviewed, because I did look for a position with some of my sight loss. So the things that I think that are very critical for an in-person interview. First, when you do receive that fantastic email invitation saying we'd like to invite you for an interview, you must do this, and this is even applicable for a virtual one, but do your homework. Research the company, the culture, and the people. And you can get this information not only, hopefully, if you know some people that work there, obviously asking them questions, but more importantly, doing the research that's online. It's almost inexcusable not to be able to find things about companies. Every company has a lot of social media pages. So starting with LinkedIn, obviously having a presence, but going to the LinkedIn company page. You can also log into glassdoor.com. It provides a lot of information from an employee perspective, how they rate the company and things of that nature, get a feel of people and culture. Another good resource that I've used for many, many years that's still good is Yahoo has a finance tab that tells you if the company is publicly held. It gives you some real good nitty gritty that most of the time you just don't find. But then obviously if it's a local or a small to, medium-sized company, rely on, those social media community newspapers, but please devour as much information you want to find out if they've been awarded something. Imagine going into a company and not knowing that the last 2 years they were named as America's best place to work or something like that. So showing that you've done your due diligence. Secondly, also not only researching it, but with any type of form of vision loss or a disability that may put you, a little bit at a disadvantage, you want to make sure you're at an even playing field. I do my homework to find out where am I going to interview. A lot of companies, just because you get the email and said we'd like to interview you, they may have multiple locations. So never assume anything. Clarify which location. If it's a large company, it could be a campus. I live in Houston, as I stated. Exxon has their corporate offices. It looks like a college campuses. When I tell you nothing less than 10 or 12 different buildings. So you can imagine, I got an interview at Exxon, and you just show up at 111. What building? Which parking lot? You need to make sure you do your due diligence, and especially if you're using paratransit or ride share. Where is their drop off or is their point where I enter the building? So if they don't provide that question, it shows that you're doing your due diligence. So you want to be prepared. I even like, if it's a huge company, I'd even see if you could get a relative or a friend or someone to do a drive-by so you have a feel of where you're going and the time that it takes. Don't assume that, it's 10 minutes away. Well, guess what? If you're going right in the peak of traffic, that 10 minutes can turn easily into 30 minutes. That's the other point. Always make sure you prepare to be early. If your appointment or interview is at 9:00, don't arrive at 9:00. Don't arrive at 5 till 9. You should arrive at least 15 minutes early for several reasons. You want to make sure you're in the right place in case they say, we need to take you here and that sort of thing. And you're running in at the last minute. But more importantly, it just gives you a chance to kind of sit down, take a deep breath, review some last minute notes. I always tell people, take extra copies of resumes. You already have downloaded, they already printed it out, you hope. But what if you walk in and they go, I was just in another office and I left a resume. Do you have a copy? No, you should have had one. No, you have. Oh, sure, I have a couple of copies. Maybe they might bring in an extra person. So always have that and review your resume thoroughly. If you have someone else writing your resume, again, I'm telling you this from a perspective from a hiring manager and recruiting. People would go, what did that say on my resume? Well, you wrote it. I'm just asking you the question. So make sure you review everything it says and be prepared. They could ask that question. Take a copy of that job description, review that thoroughly, every bullet point. Sometimes some companies intentionally want to ask you about that 14th or 15th bullet point that you see that you're going, oh my gosh, that was way down at the bottom. So just kind of peruse it. And if you don't have an answer, hey, I'm not experienced, but I can learn that. So make sure you're familiar with what they're looking for and the kind of key things and strengths. And also be prepared to dress, business professional. I always say it's a whole lot easier to dress up than to dress down. You don't want to go too casual and go, oop, I should have dressed up a little bit more. So I'd rather tend to tell people always just dress to be professional, that it makes a good impression. Also limit the cologne and the perfume. You don't want to make an indelible, permanent, lasting impression. I can't tell you how many times people would come out, and especially if you're in a confined room, just go lightly. And as far as also making sure that, because you're going to be nervous, please make sure you carry some breath mints, people. It's nothing worse than to have a dry mouth. And I don't mean no gum, no chewing gum is allowed. Some little cute little Altoids or something. Don't put the peppermint. I've had people literally walking and choking or crunching and, I'm going, oh my gosh, what's going on? So just making sure that you are totally prepared, because you're in a room, dry mouth, and there's nothing worse. This is your first chance to make sure you want to do a first impression. So, and then the last area is to take some notes. You should have some notes, maybe that you've already reviewed about the question, the job description. So you've got some questions or some notes. Hey, I heard you got this award. What kind of impact will this do? I've heard you, whatever that may be, so that you don't forget, and making sure that you are going to be prepared. So those are the main things that I would say that one needs to be prepared. So, and always to be cordial and friendly to people when you meet them. I would tell people, you thought you were being interviewed when you walked into my office and sat down, but guess what? You're being interviewed from the moment you drive on that parking lot, especially if it's a campus and they've got speed zones and your friends or parents are flying off. They notice that. Security guard, you rude. What do you mean you need my ID? They didn't tell me I need. Well, okay, they have a reason for asking for that ID. So making sure that you're friendly and cordial. And that's why if you arrive early, you can take that deep breath and make sure you're all put together and ready to go.
All right, that's perfect. So let's do the interview, Sarah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so I'm going to start here. So Sarah, thank you for coming in today and for this interview. Please go ahead and take a seat, and we are going to get started. So I see on your resume that you've worked with teams, and in your cover letter, you talked a lot about the sort of benefits of being part of a team. Can you talk with me a little bit about what has been your experience of being on a team with a difficult person, and how did you handle that?
Oh, wow. I can think of a time when I was assigned to work on a very a huge project for the company, but it was just a portion that we needed to get jump started to add to and pass on to another team that was going to do the bigger piece of the project. But they had a very aggressive timeline. I was somewhat new in the department, and then they had a senior individual employee that I was assigned to work with to collaborate to get it out and meet this very aggressive deadline. I later figured out, because I was new, that's why I got assigned this person, because this was someone who had been in the role a long time, was extremely challenging, always resisted feedback, never ever wanted anyone to make any suggestions or different ideas about how to produce the necessary project. And then more importantly, as far as communication skills, was extremely blunt, rude, would just, just cut people off and just say, this is the way we're going to do it. So my first meeting, it didn't go anywhere well because I certainly wasn't prepared. I knew nothing about working with the person. And so we were just assigning and looking at the project and what each of us would be responsible for. And then the second time we met, same type of difficulty in communicating. And it took me, I had to take a step back, but then I suddenly asked if we could reschedule because I needed to get some additional information. And I used that time to reschedule, just to take a step back for me, to not be judgmental and biased as to why this person was just so blunt and rude. And the next meeting when we scheduled, which was the very next day, again, we had an aggressive deadline. I took the time to say, I explained the reason why I needed to clarify some of my questions. And also, I asked them if there was anything that would make it easier for us to work together, as far as me delivering my work to them, as well as them delivering my work. And the person said nobody ever asked what would make her life a little bit easier. So she appreciated that. And then I said, I'm going to ask clarifying questions, so I don't hope you take this to an offense. So I just took the time to really kind of learn a little bit more about her, but also explain the reason. It wasn't questioning or doubting her capability, but I, being new, needed that. And so over the course of about the next 3 days, we were able to work every day diligently. And she told me, just be direct and stop beating around the bush. And I learned that lesson very quickly. Ask, how can we work together effectively? And she said, just be direct and tell me when you need it. And that's exactly what I did. We not only finished the project, we finished it early. And then it developed that we were able to continue to work on some other projects. And some of my coworkers asked, how did you do that? And I had to say, you know what? All you got to do is ask sometimes. It's amazing what you can do. So that taught me a great lesson, is not to judge and to just take a little bit of time to kind of understand and work with that person, because teamwork, you get so much far more done efficiently when you can work together in unity.
Thank you. I appreciate that response. So your resume shows that you've worked for your current company for about 7 years. I'm wondering, why do you want to work here? Why do you want to switch?
Well, to tell you the truth, Cheryl, I've been here in my company for 7 years, and everybody in my department look like they've all gotten promoted, and I haven't been promoted. Some people have even come in after I have, less years, and they seem to be getting promoted. And I'm ready to get that next position. So I've heard about your company. You guys have great benefits. You pay well. And I heard from a few of my friends, everybody seemed.
Oops. Are you muted?
In the steps. So I'm ready to go. I think I can do a good job here.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I'm gonna due to our time constraints, I apologize. That was our last question. So I'm gonna ask you, do you have any questions for me?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate this chance to get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So mock interview ends. Now we're going to debrief. And I invite both Mel and Sarah to share. So Sarah and I suppose Mel, what did you think Sarah did well in this interview?
You started off strong. That first question was good. I will say that you started off strong. But you gave a clear example, right? If you guys, I don't know how much background there's been, but that whole STAR format, right? The situation, the task. I always forget what the A stands for, and
actions,
the resolution.
the steps you took. Yeah.
And then results. Yeah.
You painted the picture, right? I absolutely, I watched what happened in my mind's eye, and that's what I, as a hiring manager, right, or as a you wanting you for my team is what I want to hear. What did you do, and what was the result? And I heard every bit of that.
Right. All right. Anything else, Sarah? Would you
No,
add?
no. And that was really what I was trying to provide, because you did say, give me an example of working with a difficult person.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people tend to generalize, oh, with difficult people, you're going to always have, but I'm a friendly person, and so I can get along with everybody, and we wind up doing it too. Yeah. No, that's a general, answer. So you really do need to listen and try to be specific and give especially examples of what you did versus, well, that person just didn't deliver. So I went and told my manager, I can't work with them. That's not the answer. So, yeah.
And Sarah, the other thing, and I think we all find it really hard, is this is the time for you to say I. It's not what
Yeah,
we
you
did.
have to. It's
It is
no
what I
we.
did. I did what I did. There is
Right.
no collective we.
Mm-mm.
You are there to brag on yourself all day long, and it's hard.
Right. Absolutely. This
But
is the
this is the
time to
time to take all
Mhm.
of it, man,
Yes.
all the credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
And then we had that second question.
About that.
Oh, yes, yes. All right, so we're going to flip the coin and talk about what didn't you do so well? And sort of like, why does it matter? And what should you have done? So,
So my red flag was, wow, she's not getting promoted.
Yeah,
What's wrong with
there you
her?
go.
right.
Oh, and
I
that's
hear that all the time. I can't get promoted, or everybody in my department gets, but did you sit down with your manager? Did you ask, okay, did you first of all apply? Or are you thinking somebody's going to come and tap you on the shoulder and say you're the
mhm.
greatest thing since sliced bread, and I'm going to promote you to the next level?
Mm,
So that doesn't happen in the real world. You've got to determine, I'm ready, and then express and have conversations with your manager, and afterwards maybe say, I've taken additional courses, gotten some certifications, but my company is either reducing and consolidating roles or what have you, but I really really feel that I am ready to take the next level based upon the courses and the preparation and the projects that I've worked with. And at this juncture, my company, whatever reason, I am looking for other outside opportunities while I explore internal as well, because I am ready and want to make a wonderful contribution to an organization like yours, because blah, 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 because you've already got the job description. So you want to insert that.
So it's not that you shouldn't say, like, I want to be promoted when you're in
Right.
the interview, but you need to frame it a little
a,
differently
a little
than,
bit better, and not
right.
like, and put the blame on them. They didn't promote me. No, I've attempted. You could also say for the past 7 years, then I've had 3 different managers. Well, it's kind of hard to develop a rapport in 3 years. They're in and out every year and a half. Or you could say, unfortunately, our position, our department has gone through a lot of restructuring and reorganization, and I've been, trying to prepare to take that next role. But I realize I really need to plant myself with an organization where I know that I can make this contribution, and I prepare that by, enhancing my skills and having, conversations. Also share. I've had conversations with my supervisor, and they've said at this juncture, maybe we just don't have any other promotional opportunities, or the roles that they want from me. I don't want to be in outside sales or what have you,
Right.
the career track. So being able to expand on why, and not
Mhm.
just they're not promoting me. Right.
And suppose like you're motivated by the fact that the other company wants to pay you lots of money.
Yeah, but they
Do
don't
you
want to hear that. Yeah, that's
okay. So what's the other?
no. But then you just say, and based on what I have read and learned
Right.
about your organization, you treat and reward your employees well. And that's all that anyone, everyone wants to be a part of a family where not only they can make a contribution, but they are rewarded for their efforts. And so that's why I definitely would love to be a part of ABC company. So yeah, but most companies, if they pay well, they know that, but they don't want, hey, show me the money kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, but just pump them up as far as they're doing all the right things and taking care of their employees.
So before we open it up, I want to talk about the fact, Sarah, that you said no when I asked you if you had any questions.
Mhm.
Could you talk about why I think your response should not have been no?
Oh, absolutely. You should always, always have questions when you go for an interview. If nothing more, then what are the next steps in this process? Or types of questions? Do you have a timeline as to when you are making a decision? Personally, I like to get deep into the position. If they have not shared, can you tell me, is this position a newly created role or is it a backfill? And if so, if it is, if you're replacing someone, what happened to the employee that was in the role before? I kind of want to know, did they leave the company or are they still with the company and they got promoted? Two, kudos. One, they promoted. Two, they're still around. So if I come and encounter a problem or have a question, I can go and ask this particular person because they're still with the company, or did they just leave? So those are the types of things you always want to have at least a couple of questions. And another good question is, what is the top quality that you are seeking in the candidate that you want to hire? And you hope you've nailed it. And if they tell you, you make sure you close out. I really appreciate this. And I too, in fact, have such and such strong communication skills or whatever that particular quality of questions. But there's a ton of follow-up, additional questions that you can always ask, especially as they come up during the course of the interview. Listen, but also come in prepared with several. But don't ask questions like, what's your benefits? How many days off do I have for vacation?
Okay, can you say why not? I
Oh,
mean,
no,
why shouldn't I ask that?
because that's
I want to know.
No, because it's all about the money. Then we already know that you're already here before you even get the job. You want to know when you're going to have time to take off, and you haven't even started the job. I never forget interviewing summer interns, and they wanted to know, so when can I take off the time? You're only here for the summer. I mean, you got 2 months at the max, and you want to know when you can take off? No, you need to work 5 days a week. So that tells me, are you really serious about committing to wanting to work? So no, you don't want to know about tell me about the benefits. I thought the role was why you were here. Although it could be, you do need benefits, but that shouldn't be your priority to tell the company, because again, someone else could offer you, dangle another carrot, then you're gone. So is this person really committed for the opportunity or just make the money and run?
And so Mel, I know you've done interviews. So how have you used that invitation to ask questions in your sort of interviews?
Yeah, so keep in mind that even though this is them interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You need to try them on just like they need to try you on. I take a lot of pride in stumping with my questions. I've had a few that go, hold on a minute.
Oh yeah, that's a good
haven't
question.
been
I got to
one
think about that
before.
one. Yeah.
Usually my go-tos though, because I really do want to know. I want to know what the challenges are that people face in the beginning. I want to know how they overcome them. I want to know what a typical day looks like. Sometimes I get a chuckle because there is no typical day, but I want to know that.
Right.
And then oftentimes I want to know kind of that 90-day year plan. Like what do you expect me to be able to achieve in 90 days? What do you expect me to be able to achieve in a year? That can vary drastically between those two time frames, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just we're just going to keep building as you keep going. But I need to try them on. That job description tells me what skills they need and maybe what my requirements are, but it doesn't necessarily tell me what's on my performance appraisal. That's I need to try them on and decide if that's what I want my day to look like.
Right. No, I mean, those tough questions, but you got to be brave enough to ask it, because sometimes they really don't have an answer, but they will also bring it right on out there. So, and you want to know, because this is a place when you leave, I don't know if I want to work for that person, or that kind of organization. So, yeah, you really do.
Yeah, but remember, this is as much us trying them on as them trying us on. And I don't think a lot of people, they push that to the back.
Yeah. And another good question is, what's the makeup of my team as far as overall job tenure? If you're, especially, hey, you're in a team, how many people are in a similar role or would be comprised of my team? Well, you got 10 people. What's the average tenure? How long have they been here? Well, if everybody been there less than a year, what had happened? Why?
I have questions.
Well, what happened to everybody? Did they all get promoted or did they all walk out and quit?
Right.
And it's okay. Well, what happened? Well, Sarah, some left, but then 3, okay, you get a good feel. Well, we did have a management change. We did have, okay, you're getting into a little bit more, so you're learning. So those are the kind of tough questions. Yeah.
And you sound engaged. You sound like you actually, want to
Yeah.
do well.
You want to know.
Job.
You want to know how well do I fit in? And then, the method to the madness is I'm new. I hope I can turn and ask somebody if everybody else. Well, don't ask me. I just got here last month. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of know. So yeah, but be comfortable with that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent, ladies. So we're going to pause here and I'm going to invite folks, if you have questions concerning sort of an in-person interview, or you have questions concerning a preparation for an interview, to you could write it in the chat or Q&A, or please feel free to raise your hand and we'll spend a little time answering your questions.
All right, we already have a couple questions in the chat. The first one is from Nikki. How, as a blind person, can I refer to notes in an interview?
That's another good question. What I normally do when I go in for an interview, I have my phone and I immediately say, by the way, because I'm already the elephant in the room. I didn't tell them I was blind. At least from my perspective, I didn't disclose that, but I'm walking in with the cane. They seated me and I simply state, this cell phone, I have my notepad open and I have some questions that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to ask. And so they were already pre-typed. Now, if you're really good and skilled, and I've got some colleagues that, they can put their little, type as they are listening, but I can't go through an interview and type up a quick question. Back in the day when I was sighted, I could write a little something on a legal pad. But if you've got, a good sharp memory and you put a pin dot in there, then hey, that's fine. But I use my phone to refer to questions as well as to ask something about what I've read in the media or what have you, and say, so if I can take a quick moment, can I review just to make sure I cover, because there were a couple of things that I don't think we addressed. So I just put that out, that this is a tool for me. And this is the way that I take my notes that I've already pre-typed. And I even do a quick little demo. I'll show them, this is voiceover. I'll have my Bluetooth on, but hey, I'm using it. And this is what I'm swiping. And they go, oh, that's how you do. Because they're already curious, especially for me. I'm walking in with the cane. So that's how I would explain that. So they're immediately piqued. So you get a chance to inform and educate as well about accessibility.
And I'm going to say, if you know Braille, I've done it. I write out my questions in Braille and I've got my sheet, right? And I pull out my little sheet of notes and I put that in front of me. And sometimes people inquire, sometimes they don't. But and you could certainly, like, if you use a laptop, because I've done that too, where I've taken my laptop with me, and I've got my little earpiece, so they don't need to
hear
know
the screen reading.
what's being said and all that stuff. And so I open up my laptop, and to some extent that allows me then to take notes if I'm so inclined. But I've got my questions in front of you, in front of me, because I think, at least let me be honest here, going in for an interview, it's a nerve-wracking experience.
They're very nervous and you'll forget. Right. So,
right.
No. And a sighted person would have a sheet of paper out. So you can have your Braille, or again, in my instances, I don't read Braille. And then I clearly put it out there saying, I'm not calling and trying to check somebody out on social media. So they obviously know. So great question.
All right. The other question from the chat is, do you disclose your vision issues if you have a degenerative eye disease, even though they will see the white cane when you walk in?
No, just as I stated, disclosing is an individual decision, first of all. None of us can ever tell you when you should or should not disclose. In my instance, now that I have such a significant vision loss, I don't necessarily disclose it when I'm completing the online application. However, if I get that interview, I don't have to disclose. I walk in with the cane and here I am. However, pay attention if they send an email and say, Sarah, we are going to be interviewing you at such and such time. I usually will respond back, how long should I allow for the interview process? And will this process include anything other than an interview, i.e. an assessment? Because some companies, if they like you, they say, hey, we'd like, if you've got a few minutes, can you complete this brief online assessment? Well, I need to know that, because if they're going to go and say, here's a laptop, here's a brief online assessment, or go into a, skill area, like a testing room or something, I need to let them know it needs to be a screen reader. So again, I ask that question in advance. And if they simply say, no, it's an interview, then that's all. Then I come in, and when I show up, as I stated, I'm an elephant in the room. So at that point, that's when they know I have a vision loss, and I tell them I am going to use my iPad or my phone as my accessibility aid, and I use a screen reader, as we've communicated before via email. I use my screen reader to read and prepare all of this, but at that point, that's when I can disclose. So it's up to the individual. So if you've got some vision loss, but still can navigate effectively peripheral and things like that, you don't. But if you choose to, you can do that early on, and so that they can make those necessary accommodations. But if they said they had an assessment, at that point, I would have to disclose I use a screen reader and would not be able to do it unless it's accessible or something on an iPad or, a tablet or something that has some type of talk back or voiceover, or hopefully some navigational capability.
All right. So I know there may be some questions, but I really want to do the virtual interview,
Right.
because I think that's also
Very
more
valuable. Yeah.
it's
More
it's
prevalent.
important, and it's happening a lot nowadays. So Mel, I'm as you're going to talk about the virtual interview, could you take a few moments and just talk about how should someone prepare for the virtual interview?
Yeah, absolutely. So, 98% of what Sarah said as far as interviewing for the in-person, spot on. It's all the prep work. You're just not going to their building. Now, to be fair, check your internet connection, because you might have to go somewhere else. You don't want that spotty, you don't want a grainy screen. You don't want the in and out audio. If you know that that's a problem, then that's something you want to prepare for. You're still dressing the same way. Again, all that prep work is still the same. The difference is, right, is where are you doing the video? Okay, are you doing it on your computer, on your monitor? Are you doing it on your phone? What does your background look like? Your physical background. Most people blur their background, or a lot of people will put up a template photo that's in the back of just a generic, room or something. You don't necessarily, depending on where you're taking it, right? You want it to look as professional as you can. You don't want it to be in your bedroom with your bed all disheveled, right? Put that background in there. You want to make sure you're centered in the camera. So I always do, and I have, depending on the lighting, good vision. Good, okay, that's a bad word. Usable vision. But I still do a test Zoom call on whatever camera I'm doing, the time of day. So maybe the day or two before. I want them to see what the lighting looks like. I want them to make sure I'm centered. I want all of that prep. I want to make sure the background looks okay. And then the day of, just like if I were to walk in the office, is my hair okay? Does my jewelry look good? If I have makeup on, am I put, all of that doesn't change. But a lot of the prep is knowing where your camera is, knowing where to look. And then I take notes. I always ask to take notes, and I have a little pad to my left, and I will look down, but I also want to make sure I know where to go right back to where that camera is, to make sure that I'm always centered, and I try really hard not to move. I'm Italian, I move. But that's a lot of that prep work. And then the other two that I want to add just in general is a lot of times you'll get that calendar invite and you'll know who is interviewing you. And I will go LinkedIn them and see who is interviewing me, so I can make a personal connection with them maybe we have something in common. Did that with my last one, got the job. Don't know if that's why, but I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
um, and then, like we talked about, right, have those follow-up questions ready to go. But it's really the same concept as going to the physical location. You just want to test it out, and you want somebody to make sure your audio is good, that if you need to change your mic, that you have a mic and have a backup. I've had Bluetooth die. Um, I've had my actual headset die at work, and I'm like, well, I better figure out another audio source. So have something as a backup because technology is, I'm sorry, unreliable.
Mm, mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm. All
um,
right.
I think that's all I can come up with right now.
Okay. So we're going to do just two questions this time. Because this one I think you get whether you're in person or virtual, but I wanted to do it here. So, Mel, thank you so much. I'm really excited that you're here. And I really also appreciated the fact that as soon as I started the meeting on Zoom, you were there. Um, so my first question for you is, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, Cheryl. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Goodness. So I grew up in Texas and I came there from California. I finished high school and college in Texas. I have a bachelor's in journalism. I went to West Virginia and I worked for a newspaper. I went back to California and I started working in a boutique store and at Target. And then I got my job at Verizon and I was there for 15 years and I did everything. I was on the phones. I was a supervisor. Let's see, I worked for our executive relations team. I did quality assurance. I got my green belt and my black belt. And um, then I got laid off, and that was a real crummy time. But that's where I'm at right now. Is I got laid off. There was a reduction in force, and I'm looking for a new job doing the same thing. I'm a process engineer, and I love what I do. I can do it everywhere, and so I'm trying to see where my next fit is to do what I love to do, which is working with customers and making things better for them.
Right, thank you. I appreciate it. So, my last question for you is, so you talked about how much you love sort of working with customers and all the work you did. So like when you think about your last role, what was the thing you least enjoyed doing? And if you could talk a little bit about why.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I love my job. Customer experience, both internal and external, super important to me. It's the ROI on the company, right? If you don't have that good experience, you don't keep those customers. Um, what I love also, no two projects are the same, but the part that I don't enjoy the most is when there's change that's just out of my control. However, while that happens constantly, I've been doing this for, 20 years, change is inevitable. Um, it it has in nearly every instance allowed me to become stronger at new skills. So whether that's delivering a hard message, whether that's changing the project plan and accelerating a timeline, whether it's learning how to work with new people, maybe a new leader, pivoting really quickly. So it's some of those skills that you don't necessarily get to hone if the situations don't arise very often. And they're the skills, dealing with conflict. We don't like them, but those situations have allowed me to get better at them and get more confident in them. So when they do happen, I can go out, I can perform, we can get the project back online, and we can move forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We will get in touch. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thanks, Mel. All right. So let's debrief. So like what did Mel do well?
Well, from my perspective, she nailed that second question. The first one, she took me from the beginning to the end.
Sure
I don't need
did.
the I don't need the life story. I need about a good minute or less. Going, what? We were in
An
West Virginia,
elevator
now we're in
pitch.
California, and then we
Yep,
what?
exactly.
Yeah, it's too much. It's TMI.
Yeah.
TMI. Your elevator pitch, a good 1 minute or less, maybe about 3, 4 sentences. who you are, what, encapsulate the years of experience or an entry level role or 10 years recruiting experience. And I bring extensive, sourcing and communicate, but you tell me this and I want to add value to the recruiting team and the growth of the company or something. What's in it for me? They want to know who you are, what you bring to the table, and what can you do for me? Those three.
Good. Mission accomplished, Sarah.
That's it.
I know, Mel,
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's nice to know where you were born, but
Yeah, I know. And then we went.
I'm still waiting. Like, what are you going to do for the
What
company?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just it, because they think that it's personal, right? How many
Right.
kids I've got and how many years I've been
Yeah,
married and
exactly.
Right.
No.
trust and believe I care, but I don't care.
Yeah. Cut to the chase. Tell me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But the second one, excellent job, because she talked about, yes, at least it's not my favorite, but she did a fantastic job of turning what was her least favorite into a learning opportunity and strength for her to survive. And that's what anyone wants. We all know we're not perfect. So what we know that we're either not good at or don't enjoy, how do we work with that to help make us better?
Okay.
Yep. And I've even used examples, tell me about a time when, right?
Mm-hmm.
That had
Mm-hmm.
a negative outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and the trick is, what did you learn from it?
Yeah. It's a lessons learned. Yeah.
Lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are running out of time, which is awesome, which means we probably should do this again because there's so much to say.
It was fun.
But
It is fun.
before we finish up, I want to talk about the post interview. Like, what happens there? I didn't know, Sarah, if you want to go first, and
Yeah,
then
real quickly, you definitely want, one of the other questions is, can I follow up? If you've asked the question, what's your timeline to make a decision? If they say this is early in the process, we've got another couple of weeks, then can I follow up in about 3 weeks if to just define, if you've made a decision? Absolutely. And you need to follow that up, put it on the calendar and do that. I don't know when they're going to make a decision. Well, you should have asked. They usually will tell you that. But follow up. But the most important thing, immediately after leaving that interview, you can already have this done. Send them a thank you note. I cannot tell you the power of thanking people. Send it to the HR representative. If it was multiple people, ask them to forward it to the rest of the participants. But thank them, express extreme interest of wanting to get the job and why you feel that you are best suited. And if they have any other additional questions, feel free to ask, but send that thank you note no later than 24 hours to 48 hours after the interview, and follow up with someone to say, have you made a decision if you've not gotten the little snag nasty reject notice?
Mel, anything to add?
No, the last few that I had, like I said, I had the calendar invites, so I had direct email addresses, and then I was working through a recruiter as far as the offer and all those pieces. So I sent it to all of them actually. The recruiter was so incredibly helpful, and I just wanted to basically tell them I had a great time, and I did. My the one that I got hired for, we had a great time. Like.
Right.
Exactly.
So part of it is that personalization, because hopefully in that interview you've connected with them. It's kind of hard when it's a panel, but when you've got one or two people, hopefully you've got that little connection that you can make them remember you, and to put into that letter besides the I'm the interest in the job and all the stuff you really need to put in there. But if they can remember you, that's the key. They've got to remember you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, final thing, and I apologize. If anybody has any questions, you guys know you can do the workforce development at lhblind.org. Please send your questions and we'll answer and get back to you. So we want to wrap up with a giveaway. So I know, Sarah, what do you think? 1 to 20? And then if you guys guess, you can raise your hand or you can write the number in. So
Throw those numbers in that chat box fast. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, Cheryl.
All right. All right. I don't know. Elena, anybody interested in our book, our session of career counseling? Any numbers?
We have one number from Nikki.
Okay.
She guessed 10.
Okay. And that's it?
That's
Mickey?
all I'm seeing. Nikki.
Nikki.
Oh,
All right.
and 3 from Hillary H.
Okay.
Okay.
What
So
are
we got
Hillary's
10 and 3.
and 3? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my number is my birth month, 8 August.
Uh,
So 10, I guess, is closer.
right. But since we only have 2 people, they'll
And
both
then
get
the
some.
third and 3
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
We
All
can do that.
right.
We can make
Well,
that
Love
happen.
it.
so Nikki and Hillary H. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I feel like we need to like do this again and dig a little deeper, but that's all right. We've got months and months to go.
We do.
So,
Well,
so
thank you, everybody,
yeah.
for
So thank you, Amy and Mel and Sarah, for sharing such great information with us. Thank you, as always, to the ASL interpreters, and thank you to Elena for being our moderator. And also, I just want to say thank you to our attendees, right? Because you took the time to join us, and we really appreciate that. Just want to let you know that survey, you'll get a link to that, or it pops up after the program. So please take a few minutes and complete that, because we really value your feedback, and it helps us to sort of figure out next programs and where to go and all that stuff. So thank you very much. Again, thanks to everybody, and we are done for today.
thanks. Have
Right.
a good evening or
Thanks,
afternoon.
Cheryl. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.